Good morning, everybody. So this month it's an IAB takeover on the Coffee Morning with Sarah and Sam speaking about the repackaging of the IAB membership offering. And as a nice surprise, Sam's doing our facts. So over to you, Sam.
Thank you. It's a proper takeover. As everyone knows, we have themes every single month, strategic themes at the IAB. And this month it's all about education. So as we're coming up to nearly a year now with our library course, which some of you may be aware of, but for those that aren't, we launched a free of charge course initially with libraries across Kent to give people the opportunity to get a good basic understanding of budgeting, things like pay slips, really kind of like basic financial everyday skills, which quite a lot of people are lacking. So the great thing is that with Kent Libraries alone, key fact number one, 146 learners have now taken that course, and there's a real strong appetite across the community for this type of education, which I'm sure many of you are probably aware. And every October, libraries across the whole of the UK have Get Online Week, which could be a good thing for people that you may know. But it's the largest digital inclusion campaign in the UK. I think they also run it in Australia as well, but it helps thousands of people build digital skills. So it's a great opportunity if you want to improve digital skills. I know many of you will probably be, very good in this area, but you may know people who haven't got access to technology. It's a great opportunity for them to go and learn. So this October, and the National Lottery are putting in lots of grants across libraries and communities offering more financial education. And this is something that we are also very much supporting in various guises. So what we did is we offered a free of charge course. So you could go to the library and you could get online to do the course through one of their computers, but we also did it on a QR code as well. So if you had a smartphone, you could also access the course as well, which is great for kind of people at the younger end of the age groups. So they could do it whether at the library, whether they're at home. So it's a mix of traditional and digital access points to make learning more flexible. And we're also really keen to talk to other councils, other organisations about getting this course out there to different communities and to a wider audience. So our newest partner is actually through one of our centres that we're working with, and it's a charity in Hull. And they're helping people who've had addiction problems re-enter society and get used to everyday life again, and get educated in kind of basic finance skills, and also hopefully try and get employment as well. So it's kind of like gone off the boil a little bit, our libraries course, but it's something that we will be talking about quite a lot as we go into next year, and education as well. It's been a big focus for us over the course of this year in terms of the work that we've been doing behind the scenes. So there's going to be a lot more interesting education-based opportunities coming down the track. So they're the key facts.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Sarah's in.
Cool.
There she is.
Can you hear me?
Where are you?
Yes,
Hi.
can hear you now.
Hi. Morning, Erin. Sorry for being late, but we are live in Jordan. So, I flew out to Jordan last night, arrived, 1 o'clock this morning, and I'm currently at the Arab Open University. So I'm actually using one of their conference rooms at the moment. So we are in partnership with them. We have just signed agreements with them about 10 minutes ago. So all go this end. So apologies for being late, but
we'll let you off. You sound like you've got a good excuse.
It looks quite official. We'll have to get some.
Yeah, I know. Look, exactly. We're in their conference room, which is quite well. I've just stolen their conference room. So anyway, all good, all good. So right. Proper international meeting this morning.
Indeed. So can you let me have control?
Yep, you should be able to share screen.
Thank you. Right. Great stuff. Can everyone see that?
No.
Oh, brilliant. Hold on a second. Let me have a think. There we go.
Don't share screen. I love it when it goes well.
How about that?
No, still looking at you.
Oh. Hmm.
Sam, try Alt and S instead of trying to click the share button.
Okay, 1 second. That working?
Yes.
We can see your screen now.
Right, okay, 1 sec.
We've got the slides down the side though as well.
How's that?
Excellent.
Great stuff. Okay, so before we go any further, I suppose, the title could be, well, seems very exciting, and it is, I guess. So we're talking about membership. And we've entitled this Repackaging for Growth. It's not going to be anything completely different. We're not blowing everything out of the water, but we do think that this is a really good opportunity for us to position our membership in a much more engaging way, basically, so you can gain a lot more value. So I will just hold on, go on to the next bit. There we go. So the insight behind this, and Sarah's going to go on and do the technical side of things, but yeah, the insight is at a deeper level, and we're preaching to the converted, I'm sure, when we say how important the role of bookkeeping and accountancy is in the UK. But there's some stats to emphasise this. 97% of the UK economy is powered by small business, which I'm sure many of you are aware of, and it's quite widely publicised. Most of which, in fact, many of which, as I'm sure you'll all you'll support, they do need financial support to survive, never mind to thrive and succeed. So what this does is translates this 97% of the UK economy translates into over 5 million businesses. And this is versus a significantly lower number of UK registered agents that could look after them. So I think it's around over 100,000, the last time I look, around 110,000. So from our industry perspective, an awful lot of work to go round, especially when you take into consideration new legislation. So obviously the most topical one at the moment is MTD ITSA, for example. So, making things potentially for small businesses more complex. And higher tax levels. So empowering business owners to make sound financial decisions in a financial marketplace has long been the role of bookkeepers and accountants, which I'm sure you'll all put your hands up to do. And it's something that, as an industry, all of you here have been expected to provide. But what we know, and obviously what Sarah knows, especially having been in your shoes as well, is that it's also important for your business to succeed and to grow. And that is essential for the sustainability of the SME economy. It goes hand in hand. Both parties are dependent on each other to succeed.
Do you want me? Sorry, go on, Sam. I was going to say, do you want me to jump in? Or are you okay?
You can do it at any point, though.
Well, do you want to just go back a slide and I'll jump in from there if you like. So I think as Sam has explained there, I think what the UK economy is quite unique in that 87% of the economy is made up of the smaller medium-sized enterprises. And as we say here, there's 5.4 million businesses that all need some kind of financial support in some shape or form. And as we know, that the number of agents doesn't match that at all. So at the moment, demand completely outstrips supply in the market. So from our point of view, I think there should be an understanding that we can grow our businesses as big as we want, because there is a huge amount of supply there for us. Now, if you consider, obviously, the new legislation, as Sam just referred to as MTD, it becomes more and more complex for these businesses to navigate the UK tax system and the UK legislation. So therefore, they are more dependent on us. It gives us new income streams too, to be able to support them. But it is a symbiotic relationship. And I suppose from my point of view, I've always been somebody who wants to support the SME market, and to do that via a bookkeeping practice or an accounting practice. Now, what I see in the marketplace is that too many of us are struggling with really growing our practices. And that's really what I want to support everyone with. These stats here are known. The unknown is that there's too many people unable to grow their businesses and support with the demand that's required. And I don't think that's through anything other than not having the tools and it isn't in the marketplace how to grow your business. So that's really what I want to speak to today, because as far as I'm concerned, the more of you that can grow your businesses to a really successful size and can service as many small business owners as possible, that's success for me. So it's a success for you because you're rewarded, and it's success for the economy in general. So it's a win-win for all of us. Sam, do you want to go on to the next slide?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I spoke at Accountex about this earlier on in the year, and I really wanted to take this opportunity just to go through that guide again, because I think we got a huge amount of support from everyone, or it was well received, wasn't it? And I think it's just because there's an awful lot in the marketplace about, a six-figure business and, what that looks like, but there's less support in the stepping stone to get there, I suppose, is what I see.
Yeah, I think in
that be fair?
this as well, isn't it? In terms of the presentation that we're putting together today, it's, this is still very much that guide for growth. But from an IAB membership perspective, it's structuring the membership offering in a way that's making it easier for you to engage and get that level of support.
Yeah, so that's what we've been talking about in the background. Yeah, so linking those two things together. Okay, so the method I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to talk about it's the profit leverage model, really, and that's just really about a pathway to growth. Now, I'm quite confident to talk about this, and I know that it works because Women Account is my practice, and over the 15 years that's been going, this has been implemented, and that has been absolutely crucial to the growth and success of my practice. And but also with the IAB, we're very pro education and supporting you, so everything aligns. But also, I think with my IAB hat on, what I hope to create is the environment for your businesses to succeed. For example, one of the consultations that I'm currently on is with raising standards. So I'm pushing government to get the accountancy sector regulated or respected in a way that it's currently not. So I think we come at this from both sides of the coin, which I think is what's quite powerful about this.
Absolutely.
Okay, right. So if we talk about the model that I just described, I know a few of you are at Accountex, but for those of you who weren't, and also listen to these things several times will also help. So when I look at this, I'm going to base the roadmap on what's called the profit and leverage model. So when I talk about profit, that's obvious, but in terms of this, leverage means people. So as you go from a practice to a business, then you get more leverage. Now, do you want to put them all up, Sam? And I'll just talk through. It'll be easier then, I think, for people to visualize.
Yeah.
So as a high overview, we obviously all start in the startup phase, which is as you become qualified, as you make that transition to startup. And then with the idea that as you become more confident, as you grow your practice, you end up with a successful practice. Now, in terms of this model, it is just simply that you're making more money, but it is only you. So in this first in that second quadrant, if you like, the green box there, that is a successful practice is only you. So you have a job, but it's a well-paid job, but it is still a job. Then what happens is you can, if you, at this point, you decide to transition to a business, this is where the painful part is, before you then transition to a successful business. So what often happens is when someone gets to a successful practice, they think, well, I'm making this money, there's still demand, I would like to service more clients. And you think naively, and I did this too, was that if you transition to, if you take on a member of staff, then the profits are just going to go up exponentially. The opposite is in fact true for the first part of that journey. And that's why as we transition to a business, profit will absolutely drop before you're actually able then to transition to a successful business. Now, the successful business, just to define that is, you might not even be doing any bookkeeping or accountancy in this quadrant, but you will have a business that's generating profit, and more, this is now a fully fledged business that is running with or without you, but now you have an asset to sell. So that's the point that we all hope to be in, where suddenly time and money is more abundant. But what I want to talk about is how really we transition through to that, because it can be quite a painful process. And then what often happens is people yo-yo between successful practice and transitioning to a business because they haven't quite understood what needs to happen. So this is kind of what each of these quadrants would look like. So as you start off in business, the people that tend to start are obviously a good technician. We tend to have had a job and we've been quite good in our job, and we think, okay, well, we can have a go at this ourselves. Or you may be a student that's now qualified and you're now able to start a business. But often people here, while they're a good technician, they have little experience of actually running a business. And to run a good business, you need to have some really solid systems in place. So systems around how work is processed, how you communicate with clients, how we onboard clients. So there's a whole, there's many systems required just to operate smoothly in day-to-day work. But then there's also systems required around marketing and around HR and transitioning later on to be an employer. But at this stage, you tend to be good at what you do, but probably inexperienced of how to monetize your knowledge. And that lacking confidence or lacking understanding of the wider business context can often lead to undercharging. And this is why a lot of people will get stuck in this startup phase really for far too long. So, sorry. But once you start learning that and you become more confident, what I would like to see people do is transition to being a successful practice, and many of you are. So what I define what a successful practice looks like is that you're working between 30 to 35 hours a week, your books are full, you're still able to work from home, so you have that flexibility, but really you should be earning around 60,000. But as I said, it is still a well-paid job. So that's kind of roughly what that should look like. So the name of the game here is either to be a successful practice or a successful business. So stopping here is a really, really good place to be. So don't mishear me. I think this is great because this is a bookkeeping and accountancy. It can give you flexibility around your family. And it's a well-paid job, and it's a rewarding job. Now, if you decide that you want to go forward and transition to a business, I'll go through this in numbers in a minute, but as you transition from a successful practice to the business, what you now become is an employer. And that, again, is a whole new set of skills that you need to learn. It's a tough phase here because you're now employing people. You now got people to manage. You've got their work to manage. And if you haven't got systems in place, you're going to spend an awful lot of time checking their work. If we do look at the numbers in a minute, I don't think you should really consider going through to be a successful business unless you're going to make the minimum commitment of 3 employees, because less than that, what I see happen many times is that people end up working harder, longer, and for less money. So you either deliberately decide to stay as a successful practice or weather the pain and get through to be a successful business. But really, on the numbers, that's a minimum commitment to be able to make this work. Now, a successful business is obviously 3+ employees. Now, that doesn't have to be full-time. I will caveat that. You've got a system that has good systems in place for all the workflows, all your marketing, all your recruitment. But this is where the magic happens. This is where you time, and then you also now have an asset to sell if you decide to exit. So either you can continue to run the business, as I chose to do with Women Who Count, or you have an asset to sell in the future. So it's your business and you get to choose. Should we go on to the next slide? I think next slide is about money, isn't it, and how this works.
I'll just keep bringing them all up. Okay.
Keep going. I can revisit some of them as well. Okay, so just to give them an idea of some ballpark. Now, every business is their own and it's up to you. This will just give you some headline numbers if you start writing a business plan for how the growth in your business is going to look. So really in that first quadrant in startup, we've got probably approximately 30k turnover. Just as you're building up your business, you'll start at 0 hours and be working up to 35 hours. In theory, we all go evenings, weekends, don't we? But in a well-disciplined business, this is what it should look like. And I would also suggest that really at this stage, you shouldn't have any more than 10% overheads in your business either, because you should have the flexibility and you should be able to work from home. Now, as you transition to a successful practice, here you tend to have got your pricing organised, and again, so again, I'm thinking around about a 10% overhead. But if you think about this logically as well, so I would say an average client of mine would bring in £5,000 to £6,000 a year. And if you only need 10 clients to achieve this, because sometimes people look at this and think that it's unachievable, but when you break it down, it's not. You just need to be pricing right. I'm not going to talk about pricing today because there's a whole host of ways of pricing, from menu pricing, and I would definitely advocate that you start charging more for your advisory work. And absolutely at this point, do you want to be spending a lot of time on your advisory work rather than the compliance work? And this is where you can really start adding value.
Can I just interrupt, Sarah? Sorry, but Rachel's just asked a question. Are your figures based on a practice offering accountancy as well as bookkeeping, or just bookkeeping?
This was originally done on a bookkeeping, so there should be higher margin in an accountancy, and you'll have higher volume of clients in a so yes, that example I gave was based on bookkeeping, but it can be translated easily.
Thank you.
And then, but the interesting point here is what I referred to earlier, is as you transition to transition through to that business, what I would suggest, the method to do this is that when you take on your first person, you don't take on a full-time person. If you're working 4 to 5 days a week, which is what's happening as a successful practice, you want to be bringing on somebody probably 3 days a week, and you give them 3 days of your work, and then you build yourself back up to the 4 or 5 days. So that's why you get the dip in profits. And I'm just going to rewind slightly. When you're in a successful practice, you cannot transition to a full practice to a successful business without having your pricing right here. And when I talk about pricing, what you really do need to have is at least a minimum of a £10 margin with your pricing on an hourly rate. So if you think about it, if you want to have somebody qualified and somebody good to somebody who's able to earn on day one, they're qualified, they're going to need to be paid well. So they're going to, in a bookkeeping practice, would need to be paid between £25 to £30 an hour. And you still need to be making a margin on top of that. So you need to be charging out here approximately £40 an hour as a ballpark, just to start with, so that when you take that person on, they're still going to be bringing in a revenue for you. But based on that, that's how you work through the transition. So if you take somebody now, as you transition to a business, they take 3 days of your work, and then you build yourself back up. And at that point, then you can take on your second hire. And again, it's the same principle, 3 to 4 days, and then build yourself back up and so on. Now, it's not really until you get to that third hire do you end up earning the same net profit as you were before, which is why I was saying before that actually you shouldn't be going through this process until you really want to make that level of commitment. Otherwise, you've got an awful lot more to deal with in terms of administration, running a busier practice, managing people. You have more overheads. So unless you make that commitment, I would suggest you stay as a successful practice. However, if you decide to go through that pain and then start transitioning to a successful business, then each hire now becomes exponentially more profitable to you as a business. So, and it's at this point here that you should be looking at, a business that can easily turn over £500,000 plus with a net profit of around 100,000. I always think net profit sits around 25 minimum net profit for a successful practice. And it's this point then you can, sorry.
Sorry, next slide.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so these are just some of the things to consider as you start, well, at any point of the business journey, really. So in terms of systems, these really should be thought about from day one. I would like, even if you decide to only be a successful practice rather than a successful business, you still need to have processes in place. And really, if you think about it from a business continuity plan, just to have some resilience about your client's work, because if you were to be sick or you were want to go on holiday even, you would need someone to step in and cover that work. So it would be easier and it's more ethical really to be able to look after your clients in a way that all their work is documented. Now, we also have the ambassador groups too. And in those ambassador groups, there's a lot of crossover there where people offer to support each other in their business continuity plans as well. So having those systems and that transparency is good, even if it's just yourself. But when you start moving on to having a team to manage, you absolutely have to have those systems in place and transparency in place. And when I talk about systems here, I'm talking in the context of the work, there needs to be a systemized way of working. So that, for instance, if you do a VAT return, everybody would do a VAT return in the same way and make the same checks. So you'd have a checklist, sorry, just to make sure that workflows are followed in a correct way, because you can't scale a business unless you have quality assurance in place. Because quite frankly, if you put 10 bookkeepers in a room and ask them to do one thing, they probably have 10 different ways of getting to the same outcome, but you can't grow your business if you haven't got those controls and checks in place. You need to get really, really strong on your marketing and what your marketing looks like. So, for instance, if I give you an example, in my business, I know it takes 6 weeks from going out to market to look for a new client to actually having somebody in place and paying. And I also know that that networking, accountant referrals into the bookkeeping part of the business is probably my strongest source of clients, followed by networking and client referral. So all of those, but I know what all those metrics are. So if you just rewind in your mind back to the previous slide and we look at transitioning to a successful practice, you need to know all those KPIs, because as you transition and you employ your first person, you need to know how long it's going to be before you can fill up your books again. So if you've given 3 days work to your first member of staff, you need to know how long it's going to take before you're going to be full again. And therefore, you know how much you need to finance for that dip in profits for that period of time. So these metrics are really need to be known. They're not nice to, they're essential to know. Now, and also I'm going to talk about AML here as well. So AML affects startups. So AML is absolutely essential to every single person that is offering financial services to the general public. And that is before you've even signed up your first client. So the minute you have the intention to go out and you set yourself up, you need to make sure that your AML processes are in place. Now, we have, there's an awful lot of support for that within the IAB. And as all of you should be aware now, is that we've had a huge investment in a software called AML Complete, which supports you on that journey. And while I understand this can be a headache to have to deal with, you are far better that you are dealing with the IAB and not one of the regulators above us that are really hard hitting. So, so there's a lot of support. So reach out to us. We can definitely support you in this, but there is no excuse for ignorance. Everybody knows that this has got to be in place from day one. And as you go through your business and as your business grows, this is something that's going to have to be maintained. It will always be a part of your administration. Okay, so then as we go thinking about finance too, as you transition, everything really is about transitioning through to that successful business. And the more you prepare, the shorter that pain period will be. Now, if you do decide to go on that journey, I would suggest that you have money put aside. So either from cash flow, or if you are, if you've built up a practice, you should either be able to go out to finance that through a loan. There's many offerings with the banks, harder now than it used to be, but absolutely you need a cash reserve before you make that transition. And this is where I talk about the £10 margin as well. And this is why that's important. As you transition to a business though, you now need to deal with people. Now, what I do in my business as well is I have a team, an outsourced team as well. So if you're looking, it is well known that there is a skill shortage in many Western countries at the moment. So outsourcing has been a really, really good solution for me, but as a hiring strategy, not as, I suppose there's always that argument, isn't it, for abdicate your responsibility rather than actually using it as a tool, if you like, and hiring strategy. So currently I've got a team of 3 in India, but why it works so well is because I have so many systems in place. So they just become an additional hire, and actually geography becomes much less important. And there's many benefits to outsourcing too. So for, you know, simply through employment law and that as well, and having that flexibility. So there's many, to grow a business, it's absolutely something that I would recommend, but I also would recommend it in a, it's a good mix between having a balance of people in the UK and overseas. But that can just become part of your recruitment strategy. Sorry, it's happened to me last time, didn't it, Countex? Every time I do this talk, I start coughing. So, and obviously I've just spoken about marketing too, and understanding the client value. Sam, do you want to come to the next?
Yeah. I'll just keep going. There you go.
Keep going. Right, we're back to, okay. I put this in just because I thought I'd share some stories about what happened to me as well, because I don't want to be sounding like lecturing. I wanted to be very much, this was a real thing, and I felt the pain to go through this. So when I started, I quickly got to that successful practice stage. I think I was quite experienced at what I'd done, and I had worked in other businesses too. So I probably wasn't as green to business as some people that have just qualified are. However, I made several mistakes in this transition to bookkeeping, because I had the same thoughts that everyone else did. I think at some point, you know, you just decide, okay, I can make this money. If I hire someone, then I can make more money. This is how it should be. So the first thing I did was I went to the accountant that I was using at the time and asked him if he knew of anyone. He knew of somebody who was leaving, had been a bookkeeper in a business that he knew, and he thought that we would get on very well. So I met her for a coffee, and we did get on very well. And she was a little bit older than me, so I had just assumed she would be wiser and more experienced. And that was as far as my interview process went. So I then next met her on site with a client. So I'd previously done this upsell to the client, saying, you know, it's not just me anymore. I'm going to bring in this woman. She's going to be amazing. It'll be just to say, you know, I'll still be here. Don't worry about that. So, and back in the day when we used to go out on site to clients, I met her at the client, and we were sat there in front of the client's computer, and the client was in the room. And it became apparent very, very quickly that she had absolutely no idea. Sage was the software that we're using at the moment. She had never used it. And it was just an excruciatingly painful experience to have to back out of that and leave. The client was very kind, but was obviously slightly shocked at what had gone on. But I could only blame myself. I mean, I had done absolutely no competency testing at all around that. So, and now I had an employee who wasn't capable of doing the job. So that was quite a difficult situation to extricate myself from, but also, yeah, a hard lesson to learn. So now, before anyone gets hired, they will go through a competency test. So I have quite a rigorous process around recruiting to make sure that people are able to do the job that they are hired to do. Anyway, so yeah, so Sam, leave that up, because then I went back. Sorry, Sam. So that was my first attempt at transitioning, and obviously went back to a successful practice to lick my wounds. Then I thought, and my second attempt at this looked slightly different, but I'm sure it's a familiar story in people's head too, is I thought, right, well, I'm going to hire a student or an apprentice, and then I'm going to teach them my ways, and then they'll only know my ways, and they'll be a mini me, and this will be great too. So this is what I did. So I took on an apprentice, and while she was great, the money didn't work at all, because while I wasn't paying, I think I was paying her £10 or £12 an hour at the time. What it meant was I couldn't bill out, because I was sat with her training. So not only was I paying her out, so £10 at a time, I was not billing out the £30 at a time. So actually I was at a loss of, you know, £40 an hour. And then I still had, and she wasn't helping with time, because my time was now spent training her. So again, this didn't work at all. So I went back to the beginning, and it was at this point I actually reached out to Pure Bookkeeping. Well, actually, it was by chance I met them, and Debbie Roberts at Pure Bookkeeping was able to explain this model to me. And now, once I understood this information wasn't really readily available, and I understood what I needed to do to go forward, I was able to break through that transitioning to a business and became a successful business. And this is the methodology that she taught me. So it definitely works. That's for sure. So you're not alone. All of us make these mistakes is the point I'm trying to make. Right, so this is a little bit where your focus should be. I've probably spoken about this a bit as well. So as you start up, you really need to be thinking about your AML, as we've said, and positioning. Now, positioning is interesting here because as you grow, and especially if when you start off, you want to get to a successful business, letting go of your clients or handing your clients over can be quite difficult. So in my business, I positioned it that the business was called Women Who Count. Now, while it might have been one woman at the time, there will be other women that will come in, or not being gender specific, but there'll be other people that will come in. So I had already put the thought in the client's head that I will not always be doing their bookkeeping. And I think that's really quite an important thing to do, because it's hard in the best of times to move clients over. So if the relationship sets out in that way, it makes it easier later. Think about your pricing, think about being qualified and what other qualifications you can take, because the more qualified you are, the more services you can take up or offer. And obviously insurance is needed at the beginning. As you transition to successful practice, what becomes important is those good systems, marketing established, knowing KPIs, and really, really you must prepare well and have those savings in place before you transition. So as you transition, then new skills as an employer will become important. You'll need HR systems, and your focus is going to be around growth and managing that growth. And then as you move forward to that successful business, here you can make impact. You'll have more time and more money, asset, and greater freedom. And now also you get to choose how you want to shape your business. So again, if I give you an example of how I chose to grow Women Who Count. So for me, family was important, and family values around, I wanted to be able to support the SME market, but people that work for me, I wanted to be able to support them and their families. And to be able to do that was really based around offering flexible working hours. So what I do in my practice is that no one works more than 4 days a week, because then there's almost like built-in flexibility. So if somebody wants to go to their kids' sports day, or they have wanted to swap time, or they wanted to, have a sick child, it means that they can still flex their work enough to be able to do that. And that's been really important for me. And I think that's part of those values, in this space here, you can become more of a leader, and you can start shaping the business really as to how you see how a business should be run. So one of the things I'm doing at the moment is going through the B Corp registration as well, which again, that's important to me. But I get to choose, it's my business, same as you. So next slide, Sam, what have we got next?
This is where we're kind of talking about
this is over to you.
how we're gonna package it all up. So I hope everyone found that insightful, and I've seen a few things crop up in terms of whether these slides will be available afterwards, which they will do. But putting this into action with our membership offering, as I said, it's not new, but we are going through working with our member benefit partners in much more targeted ways, so we can generate more engaging content and offerings to better appeal to each phase of the journey that Sarah's just taken you through. So this slide shows some obvious examples, and we'll probably have quite a few of the logos you'll be quite familiar with. And it's not a one size fits all. Obviously, some of the brands will work through every single phase, but have more focus in others. Starting off in the startup phase, AML complete, Sarah said, regardless of what phase you're in, this will need to transcend throughout each phase. But as you transcend to phase 2, for example, and building resilience into your business, this is where company protection can come in. If you start to upscale your services, this is where, you could think about adding on Fathom or other softwares to enable you to do that. So what we're going to do is a focus on being more engaging with our member benefits, whereas previously it was arguably seen as a bit of a one size fits all, and it was up to the member benefit to communicate their offering and, you know, you to identify what's relevant and what's not. We're going to try and be a little bit more transparent based on each phase of the framework that Sarah's just taken you through. The other key part as well is mindset, and I think that I'm sure Sarah could talk about her mindset in each of these phases, and obviously especially working on your own. It does emphasise the importance of a support network. She's already referenced the ambassador groups, but also considering outside mentoring and coaching, and this is something that we are looking at including in our offering moving forward. So when we focus on our channels, obviously we're on the Coffee Morning, and we have the magazine, the newsletter, and we have our social channels as well. So these are what we consider our broadcast channels, and these will start to evolve to reflect the different phases. And not all communication will just be completely focused, and obviously we'll stick to some broad industry topics, but you'll see some themes from some of our collaborators that you see, say, in the magazine when they contribute articles, be a little bit more focused to the main pillars that Sarah spoke about. So finance systems, marketing, people, these are the kind of topics that we are going to start talking about on a more regular basis. And also pleased to announce that we have some new partners coming on board. So these are the ones that we're in kind of the final stages of discussions with, and many of them you may have already been introduced to from previous Coffee Mornings. So KPIs, Apari, Kim, many of you know, I'm sure, and then really working with Kim on that mindset piece. I think people have already found it very useful, but I think giving the opportunity for her to focus in on each phase will be beneficial to some people. Also, Bionic is a new insurance provider coming on that specialises in insurance for SMEs. So watch this space there. And you'll probably also be happy to know that the idea and the future vision of this is to introduce a more dedicated course for each phase of what Sarah's just taken you through, and that will be hopefully coming online throughout the course of next year. So in terms of what next is identify your phase, where you need support and where you want to be. It could be that you're happy where you are and you just need more support, so that's great. As I said, the IAB conversation and content will start to reflect these phases, so hopefully we'll start to see that things are becoming a little bit more tailored. And look out for new partners, new courses and new qualifications to help you transcend from phase to phase. And that's it. Any questions?
Good, thank you.
We've had a few asking about the slides. Will they be available?
Yes, they'll be available in the normal way. We'll attach them online post the session.
Okay, I was just having a quick look in the chat, and I just wanted to pick up on Jan's point there as well, really. So I'm just going to read the question out, Jan, wherever you are. A couple of years ago, I decided to cut down in readiness for retirement, so wanted clients to go, so up my charges. No one left. Clearly undercharging for years. I think there's a big message in that. Thank you for sharing that, Jan.
I think most of us undercharge. Somebody put earlier that they know that their clients are struggling, so they find it difficult to up fees. But
no, you must price it from yourself. So it has to be based on your, and there's plenty, as we've just gone from the, you know, in the first slide there is plenty of demand for our services, and it's really our job to explain how valuable it is, the services that we do. And also that's why I'm really pushing government as well to raise that awareness of the importance of the job that we do. So from the other side of the fence, I'm trying to do that piece of work too. And I must say, I get quite annoyed when I hear people giving away services for free or too cheap, because actually you're completely undermining the whole industry, because you're bringing the standards down for everybody. So I find that quite frustrating when I'm banging the drum with government saying, you know, we're worth this. So if you give your services away for free or too cheap, you're completely undermining the message that we're trying to get across. Together, we need to raise how we're thought about. We're not a cottage industry anymore. This is a professional industry, and we are professionals that have worked hard and spent a lot of time qualifying for the work that we do. So yeah, never do anything for free, charge what you're worth, and we'll bring the industry up together.
And I learned during COVID that when people got their grants and money through, the first person they paid was me. It's because you're so
You demonstrate your
essential.
value easily in that scenario.
Yeah, and you're so essential to them and their business that they pay you before anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not about people can't pay, they just don't understand the value of what they're paying for. So it's a marketing message and it's not a price message.
Right. I don't think there's any more questions coming in, so I'm going to go to Kerry if that's all right. Oh no, hold on. Nikki Holland's raised a hand.
Hi, thank you, Caroline. Hi, Sam. So thank you for that. My question is, you said during your talk that it's an average cost of sort of 5,000 to 6,000 per client. What type of client is that, and how much service do you give them? So
Okay,
so does it include admin, or is it just VAT and payroll and things like that?
okay, that was probably a very sweeping statement and probably open up a whole can of worms. Okay, if I give you a metric that you can go away and bring into your own business. So what I use is 1% per month of annual turnover for that client. So if a client turns over £500,000, I would expect to be charging them £500 a month. And that would be for compliance services. And if they want to have more advisory services, I would expect it to be more expensive than that too. So yeah, 800,000 turnover equals approximately £800 a month into your business. And I'm talking about compliance bookkeeping services with proportion. You know, you need to work it out yourself, but just to give you a very sweeping ballpark to work that out. But that's a metric that's always worked for me.
Thank you.
Someone else has said, I'm currently looking to partner with successful practices who are looking to outsource. Do we have a platform to connect with such persons?
Sam, do you want to talk about Be Free?
Yes, so Be Free is one of our recent partners, actually sponsored the awards, but they are aligned partner from an outsourcing perspective. There's quite a bit of content that's gone out in newsletters, magazines, but if you want to get in touch, we can put you in contact with them. There's also a short survey going out on that to kind of get an understanding really of where the, I suppose, gaps in education are and what people want to know. It's such a broad topic. So watch that space. But yeah, please do get in touch with us and we can connect you with Be Free.
I think it might be quite useful if we did another talk in one of the coffee mornings about outsourcing, possibly, because we're also supporting a lot of education in that space too.
Absolutely. And there's been a couple of webinars that we've supported from Be Free recently as well, which you may be able to get recordings of, because they are actually about people, you know, first entering the outsourcing space, which you might find beneficial.
Okay.
Thank you. Right, I'm going to go to Kerry now for updates. Kerry, are you there?
Hello, hi.
Hello. Oh,
Right.
you all right?
Yes, all good, thank you. Now, this is again one of those messages that HMRC haven't given us any particular update. I'm on an MTD for its meeting next Friday, which will be the first full meeting that I've attended in several months. So next month I should have more to share. However, I thought I'd just recap. There was a couple of things that come out of previous coffee mornings, which I don't think we spent enough time just exploring. So I thought I'd just very briefly give you an overview again about Income Record Viewer that I know we had someone from HMRC come in and tell us very briefly about. But over the last couple of weeks, I've actually used this myself for tax returns. And actually, if you're not aware of it or haven't used it, I just thought I'd show you again what it's about and how useful it can be to get the full picture for an individual. So hopefully this will be of use to some of you. So if I can share my screen, hopefully it'll let me. Okay.
Should be able to.
Okay. Can you see agent services?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so I'm not going to scroll up because this actually is our live one, so I just wanted to show you what the screen looks like without our agent details at the top. But ultimately, most people should use this if you are setting someone up for, we'd be familiar with it for VAT, so the Making Tax Digital for VAT, this agent services account is what we've been using since MTD launched, and this is how we would authorise or ask our client to authorise us for Making Tax Digital. However, you will see there's a new button up here now for Making Tax Digital for income tax, so that's getting ready for and for MTD ITSA. But there's also this view a client's income record. Now, if you've got a client that you've already got a 64-8 form signed for, this does not work for that. This is purely a digital service, and this is the way that HMRC are going to be moving forward, that we will ask for a digital handshake to authorise us as agents, rather than the bit of paper and post that sits in their postal room for several weeks. So if I scroll up slightly, if you want to get a client to authorise you, the first button as you log into your agent services account will be ask a client to authorise you. You would click on that. It will ask you some basic information about their entity, and then it will ask you for what service you wish to manage for them. So of course the MTD ITSA, you will be doing a lot of this. View their income record, manage their VAT, any capital gains tax on UK properties on there, and plastic packaging tax. So if you want to view their income record, you would then do continue, and it would just ask you some very basic information, national insurance number, date of birth, continue. It will ask a couple of bits more information. It will then trigger a link. You would need to send that link to the client by email. They will click on that link and log into their own personal tax account. So they need a personal gateway. They can create one as part of clicking on that link, or they may already have one in place for their own personal tax affairs. As soon as they click and press yes to that link, you will get an email to confirm that they have authorised you. They have, I believe, like MTD, there's like a link will expire after a period of time. I'm not sure what that is, but hopefully if you're dealing with this in real time, you'll be doing all of this quite swiftly. So if we go back to the beginning, once they've done that, you would then go to view a client's income record. You would then do view a client's income record, enter the national insurance number and continue, and it will then come up, are you looking to access, and it will come up their name and some other information. You do yes, and then you will get 4 years worth of their income tax and any student loan information. So it will give you PAYE information for the current year plus the 4 previous tax years, which is quite useful if they forget about a little job that they did have in the past year, and they haven't given you the P45 for that, for instance. It will give you their employment records, PAYE reference, which you'll need to enter for their tax return if they've lost their P60 or can't find it. The one that generally people forget to declare or are unsure about is what taxable benefits they received, such as company car medical insurance, and it will give you the information, whether it is actual figures or whether it's an HMRC forecasted figure. It can give you their state and private pension information, and also any underpaid national insurance contributions as well. So that value add to explain how someone can backdate the national insurance, you would be able to see that all here. Any student loan, tax code. So it gives you a lot of information from the outset that's factual from HMRC that you can present to your client and say, it states you've also got state pension, you've not told me about that. Or did you work for XYZ? Do you have any paperwork? Is that correct? So I've used this recently for a client that we were trying to piece together their tax for the last few years. And I found it extremely useful because it is what HMRC holds and how much tax they've paid as well in that time. So I just thought I'd share that. Does anyone got any comments or queries about any of that? And I know we haven't got a lot of time, but just thought hopefully that was of use to anyone.
No. Nice to see it though.
So I just thought, yeah, I think we had someone from HMRC on that just skimmed over really quickly. So I thought I'd just put my own experience of using it in there.
Yeah. No. Someone said not great for clients who are not tech savvy, but
Yeah, there is actually on the link. I'll put the link in the chat to the to the income record. That if there is anyone that is not technical, they're digitally excluded, or they find that difficult, then they can go through to the extra support team who can talk them through the process over the phone. Yeah, I mean it is digital, but there is a support team to assist if they find that difficult, and they can use
do
the
they
live.
answer the phone though, Kerry?
Well, it is a special team for this purpose. So let me put the link in the chat, and then you can always, it shows you the steps as to how that works.
Do you only have to do the digital handshake once, or do you have to do it?
Yeah, no, it's there until they
Just
revoke
once?
it. Yeah, just once. I've just put in the chat, if you just Google get access to the income record viewer for agents, that'll take you to the gov.uk page, and all of those steps and how to is in there.
Great, that saves me reading out a www.link,
It is,
doesn't it?
So that's me for this session.
Thank you very much. Has anybody else got anything else? Bearing in mind we're 12 o'clock now.
No, and I was just reading some of the comments in the chat. So thank you everyone who's contributed to that. So yeah, and thank you for attending today.
And I hope the dry air in Jordan doesn't make your cough worse.
It's
I'm
got
sure.
the air conditioning on here. I think that's probably half of it, yeah.
I'm sure that's probably what it is.
No, so no, thank you.
Yeah.
Good to
Right.
see everyone.
Next coffee morning, Wednesday, the 23rd of October.
Wow.
And we'll
Final
see you all
stretch.
then. Yeah. Year's nearly over. I can't believe it. Flown.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Good to see
everyone.
See
you
you all
all.
next month. Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.